back to Mic'd Up. We're going to be talking about today, presently, life experiences dealing with racism. Today I got my two guests, man. Family members, friends, long life friends I grew up with, played basketball with. Got Cedric Palms, doing some great things. He's an educator these days, doing his thing. And I have my cousin Carlos Rafael Miguel Bell.
That's cool. That's how we
I love these guys, man. These guys, we went to Wall many years of playing ball, and you know what I'm saying? A lot of who I am is because of these guys. So
likewise.
But yeah, man. Said I'm gonna start with you, Said, man. Today, just kind of diving off of, we had my last podcast was on life experiences, different things. Today we're gonna do life experiences with racism. In this day and age, man, how do you think it is different? Has it gotten better or worse, or gotten better first and gotten worse so far as racism? Because I see so many things, happening these days, man. It's a little different. So, give me your perspective on that.
I would say it's evolved, and that is something that is always done. They say the one thing constant is change, and change in anything and in everything is inevitable. So you go from the economics of, you go from the warfare of enslaving of people that you conquer. That's just part of it. Okay, we overtake you, you take the resources, your women, the men, so on and so forth, this land. Somebody else comes in with a different technology. So where you maybe have a spear or a bow and arrow, now they come with iron bolts. Your tools cannot overpower theirs, so they overtake you. And then it goes from just the conquering of people to looking at what can we do with this? We got labor. Okay. They need this. They need that. So now let's start trading and monetizing the people we've taken over. And so it goes to an economic base. Then more and more people start realizing that, hey, you miss the humanity of it. And so throughout the history, throughout the centuries of warfare, of slavery, of Jim Crow, segregation, and the different types of vehicles that are used to discriminate and to exert your force over a certain group of people, it always constantly changes. And so while things have gotten better in instances and situations and those types of things, that spirit is still on this earth and it hasn't gone anywhere. It's just evolved and it moves into different areas and arenas. And so that's my biggest thing on it. So you have to pay attention to the avenues in which your change is coming from. Because at the end of the day, there's no such thing as race. Race is a construct. There are different cultural similarities. There are different ethnicities of people based on where you're from. But everybody is a human. This isn't the land of Star Wars or Star Trek. There are no Wookiees. There are no Ferengis. Ain't got no Klingons walking around here. Right. You know what I'm saying? I agree. Ain't nobody looking, Chewbacca don't live across the street from
Right.
Everybody is human. So we have different elements and different levels of pigmentation and melanin in our skin. We speak different languages that gives us some differences. But at the end of the day, we all have 2 arms, 2 legs, a heart, head. We are born with what we have. We do, kids, we don't go into a cocoon and we come out butterflies.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we come here exactly who we are, exactly who our Creator intended us to be, and who He intended us to be. He created. So why the humanity of it is lost, and there are those who feel like their lack of pigmentation or abundance of pigmentation makes them feel like they're better than or something. If you tell a lie long enough, somebody will believe it. And then when multiple groups of people believe that particular lie, then you have some of the actions that have occurred in our history, in our human history. And the only way we can get better from that is if we have to have an open and honest conversation about what happened. Yes, you have folks who are saying that, well, that was my ancestor, that wasn't me. True. You're absolutely right. And I'm not blaming you, but you got to understand, you benefited from what some of your ancestors did.
Right.
Admit it. Let's figure out how to make it an even playing field because we're all human and we're all trying to achieve the same thing.
Absolutely.
So let's get there together rather than holding on to what gave you the advantage.
Right.
You know, and I think that's what people they rail against it.
All right. Well, what you think your perspective is? You know, these days with racism, or maybe you have some kind of life experience with it that you know. What do you think of it right now?
I see things have just basically evolved. I've seen a number of things now that we have this technology, as they call it. We can see physically other things that maybe some of us have personally experienced in our own lives actually play out on camera in front of us, and it can really do one or two things. It can stigmatize you and make you stay in a place of fear and not move forward, or it can desensitize you to the place where these things become commonplace and normal. Neither one of those are good, but it hasn't changed from the times when our grandparents were growing up to today. We're still dealing with the same.
You can say whatever you want.
We're still dealing with the same people,
right.
the same set of problems. I can remember being in 5th grade, like we're from a small town. I was in 5th grade at a school right here in town, a Catholic school. And they used to call me nigger every day. To the point that I beat up everybody that called me that name every time. And they expelled me from school. To the point I did 5th grade twice. Proudly. I didn't feel no type of way like being left behind or none of those type of things. My grandmother told me that if you don't, if you allow people to call you out of your name, they will. It's what you answer to, baby. And I only answer to the name that I was given. So when you've had experiences that are now played out in public like that, it can make people do one or two things. They either be afraid to move forward, don't want to be looked at a certain way, want to move in this politically correct way. And I don't deal with politics. I'm not a politician, so I don't do nothing politically correct.
Right.
I deal in right and wrong.
Right.
So that stuff still exists here today. We've seen it. There are numerous people that have been hurt and harmed by not only people that look like them, but people that don't look like them, that are responsible for them.
Right.
And all of those things are done based off of what? Don't tell me they don't have a reason behind it, because everything done in this world has a reason, cause and effect.
Right.
But there's no reason greater enough that you can tell me on why certain people get injustices done to them and others don't.
Well, I can kind of tell you why, not saying that it's right in my opinion, just like, Say was speaking of the pigment of your skin, if you look at and on the last show, O'Shawn, y'all both know O'Shawn, he made a great analogy, man. We don't even realize sometimes we have segregation within ourselves, within I'm talking about own color.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. You too tough. You too right.
But not even just that. He was speaking on, okay, man, sometimes, when you go to school, you try to adapt, he said back then was, predominantly white.
Yes, it did.
I would probably say 55-45.
Right.
That's
about right. So, you try to adapt to, white friends and, just try to, fit in and, be cool and, make sure you talking to them and
everybody.
You know what I'm saying? Because we had white teammates and things of that nature.
Diversity.
Okay. And you know where I stood at, right?
Yes.
I had both of my parents and things like that. I mean, that has an effect on your life and sometimes how things play out sometimes. Sometimes when people can use that as a crutch, and sometimes it can be to their advantage, but it just depends upon the decision that you make.
Right.
But that's not the point that I'm trying to make. The point is though, like I myself and like Roshan was speaking in himself, we were sort of like in the middle because okay, you're trying to adapt at school, white guys play ball with teammates. Then on the flip side, you got people like from Chinatown or Worthy looking at you thinking you know what I'm saying, better than them. So it's like, damn, bro, I'm just, but you see what I'm saying?
This whole problem is one thing: a lack of communication. Yeah. Even when it comes down to racism, and it's all a lack of communication, but communication with comprehension.
Right.
Not just talking to one another, but actually listening and hearing one another.
And that is very, very true, bro.
Because when I was in school, I knew all of those people. The same people you speak of. The white people, the people from over here, over there. Like, I had both parents alive, but I came from a single parent home.
Right.
I spent 90% of my time at your house or at your house.
Right.
And you know, for me growing up, we were the first black family in our neighborhood. Right. And for a long time, the only black family.
Right.
So for me, it was a kid who showed academic problems.
And so not to mention, you had a parent that was an educator that we all had to deal with and see. So like,
but even before
that, in a stigmatized situation.
But even before that, so I started off with the academic problems at first. So when how they used to do the gifted and talented back then was you got pulled from your class.
Absolutely.
So I'm already being separated and segregated from everybody else with other whites. Right. Because what much of us hate.
Right.
So
if none of us ever got asked to even test for it.
Right. If I wasn't the only black male or the only black person, a lot of times I was the only black male in our class, in our honors classes. And that's high school. So I'm talking even from elementary. So being in that neighborhood Park Vista, my dad, Pops at the time was the coach. Right. He was football, basketball, baseball. He did all of it. So if I wasn't with him after school practices or whatever, but I knew the coach's kid, so it was either be alone or develop friends in my environment.
Right.
Okay. It wasn't until 7th grade when I got permission and the trust enough to leave from Park Vista on my bike, to ride my bike to my mom house over there in Kennedy Heights. Right. And I really started hanging out with black people on a daily basis because of my environment and situation.
Right.
And so, and I know we all got teased. I would get teased, egghead, nerd, you think you, and it's like, it was never that. School just came easy for me.
Right.
It wasn't hard. Like I didn't have to do much of nothing based on that was my field of endeavor.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Sports for some of you guys came easy to field. I had to work hard.
Everybody was different.
Everybody's
different.
And once we got older, we were able to accept everybody's niche without no issue.
Right.
And I think for our circle, because you were already in Kennedy Heights, because Los was visiting all of us at the same time and hanging out with us, we were able to get well-rounded from everybody else.
But that's part of what he was saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Communication.
Yeah.
And
because our boy lived up the street.
Yeah.
But until we got these decisions, I didn't know he existed.
Right. I mean, it's funny. Like those same people that I went to St. Teresa with, that I beat up, the same people went to high school with me 3-4 years later. And think about this now. I'm the guy in 12th grade to get in the yearbook. I'm the friendliest person. Right. I have the nicest personality. I'm also the most outspoken person there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
So what happened in order for those same people that didn't like me because of my color to all of a sudden accept me and be like, yo, you're not what I thought you were. Communication.
Right.
We got to be in each other's atmosphere.
But where do those stereotypes come from? Because at the end of the day,
those are learned behaviors.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's learned.
They're learned. Whether it's from your mother, your father, but it comes from basic things like television too.
True. Absolutely.
Cartoons and television shows segregate and show you negativity.
But that's what racism is. People don't realize that is just a behavior that's taught if you think about it, when you come out as babies, 1, 2, 3 years old, you put those same kids, 1, 2, 3 years old, they'll play with each other and won't see anything but a human being, somebody I'm having fun with.
That's it. That's all.
For that age, and in that household,
and
society,
right?
Things that you've been taught and that you learn,
or that you see,
and that you see, and that's what and see. And I'm gonna be honest with you, my personal opinion now, it's gonna be the younger generation. Oh yeah, it's gonna have to create that change.
Hey dude, I tell my students that all the time.
But we're their parents.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean,
we're the creators of that. Right. So being that means we have to teach our children.
We have to instill that. Absolutely. You're absolutely correct.
How to navigate this world without being
those who are enlightened. Because I'm going to be honest, with me working in the school system, I've been in the Central Parish, also teach in EBR, East Baton Rouge. So, and I've been at a couple of different schools. So, the school environment has a lot to do with the parental involvement, or lack thereof. So, I would tell my students, hey man, the adults, we done messed this up. Y'all gonna have to be the ones to change this thing around. If you have parents like us who recognize where some of the disconnect is, we can instill those values in our kids in order to be that change.
Right.
However, the thing I tell my students who may not have those parents, see what you see and question it. If it doesn't sit right in your spirit or if it doesn't feel right in you, you can question it. And even if your parent or family members aren't on a path that aligns more so to truth, justice, and treating people right, learn what not to do. And then make a decision. Because you can learn a lot from somebody's mistakes.
That's true.
You don't have to keep making the same one. So I would tell them, I said, listen, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to teach you how to think. I'm not here to go against anything your parents are teaching you, because there's been some times subjects have been broached in my classroom, and I've had to be very careful to not shut down a kid's curiosity and creativity by wanting to know, by telling them, nah, we ain't talking about that. Because then they're going to shut down. You know what I'm saying? So ask your question, okay? I have to be very diplomatic in how I answer, because, I'm not trying, number one, I'm never going to tell you what I feel. Because I can't. You know what I'm saying? You can't just be there. My job is to make sure I allow both sides to be heard.
Mediate conversation.
So that's really what I do. I facilitate conversation. So is there anybody who agrees? Okay, cool. Why do you agree? Is there anybody who disagrees? Okay, cool. Wait a minute. Don't get mad. It's okay for them to disagree. That's fine. They don't have to feel the same way as you. But you need to listen as to why. And I think that because we become so politically correct, our country can no longer have discourse. And the social media has made it okay to be able to find people who are like-minded, whatever it is you think, believe, or ascribe to. And that's cool to have people you can bounce ideas off of. But a lot of folks stay in those groups that only talk to those people.
That's not a bouncing off of ideas, brother.
It's a cheering. Back and forth.
It's a cheering.
Okay, I got you.
You feel like I feel. Yeah, you right.
And they never look at
there's no objectivity in that.
They never look at the other side. And
there's no objectivity.
Box. So now, when you come out from your corner, after all the cheering you've got on, you're barking and yelling at each other rather than talking to understand.
And see, then that's the whole purpose of this show now. I just want to have open dialogue, whether you agree or disagree with me.
Right.
And if I don't agree with what you're saying and your thought process, let's talk about it. Right. See why you may feel the way you feel, or what is
what's happening
in your life, and what happened in your life to make you feel like you don't like black people, or you don't like white people, or you don't this, or you don't that. Because a lot of times, man, when you have open dialogue, and like you said, communication
with comprehension,
yes, absolutely, with comprehension and understanding, I think, man, that is the key to jumpstart change into. But with racism, you can't fight that with racism. You can't meet racism with racism, or racism with hate.
Do you fight fire with fire, or do you fight fire with water? Exactly. Do you fight fire with fire? Literally. Do you put a fire out with fire?
What?
You have to use an opposite of that in order to in order to extinguish what's existing and destroy. So I think that what you're saying is right, but I also think that there's an over and misunderstanding of what love really is. You see, when your parents love you, they buy you nice things and they treat you good,
it's a thing of
but they also whoop your ass and correct you.
Yeah, it's a thing of correction.
See, but we don't want to get to the whoop your ass part. We only want to hug and kiss. We want to, and at some point you have to put your foot in the child's ass when they don't do the right thing.
But at the same time,
I understand where you're going. We don't get it.
But I understand it so far as that is a way, and that is the right way with your child. But you got to take a different, me personally, my opinion, a different approach. You can see, I mean, it just depends upon that person too. Because I've seen, even in relationships, being quiet and sitting back and listening and giving time a person to think, and they hear you speak, and then give them time to think, push them under conviction themselves, and they think about things. And me showing love, regardless of what they have done to me, certain people, I'm not saying all, yes, and be like, they recognize the ugliness in themselves.
Well, all relationships
I've seen that, and for the most part, that works for me. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of time, man, some people just so confrontational. Look like it grows when you going back and forth. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So
that's what they get off.
You know, right? They get off on that. You know what I'm saying?
You know.
And so you have to be smart to recognize that.
You say you also have to understand yourself too.
Right.
You know, and I understand where Los was going with what he was saying, because, you know, Dr. King would always say, you know, you cannot drive out hate with hate. You have to drive out hate with love. It wasn't until Dr. King was assassinated that our country embraced his message. As long as he was talking about the kumbaya and the idea of equality, they were fine. It wasn't until he was going to Memphis to deal with the poor, the sanitation workers strike.
Economics.
It wasn't until he started talking about that bread. They were like, okay, hold up. He's morphed. He's changed. He done switched gears. Now they're coming for the money. So we got to silence him. And there were people who looked like him that were also a part of his demise. So that spirit infiltrated others. When you look at what the Black Panther Party started off as and what they were for protection of their community and a breakfast program for the kids to make sure the kids got to eat. All of a sudden, they are America's most wanted terrorist watch group.
We're talking about children.
Children.
When I say children, I'm talking about 25 and under.
Yeah.
Children.
That's what they were
These children were terrorists.
Right.
Children, my man. Because they're doing things for people in their community.
That's it.
Because they're not allowing anybody to go without.
At all.
Because they want to make sure their next door neighbor eating just like they eat. They want to make sure the kid across the street, they got shoes and they straight. They're not going to school hungry. They're able to function properly and get what they need.
But our federal government and the highest officials
became enemies
at the time said the most dangerous threat to national security is black youth. So they became a target. A whole different organization, COINTELPRO. So you have a whole other organization within the federal government that's keeping tabs on all of these people. Malcolm X, all of those others who were promoting your self-worth, not relying on the government. Why is that dangerous? You have to ask. James Baldwin, he has a documentary called I Am Not Your Negro.
Read the book. It's great.
And James Baldwin asked, you cannot ask me why. You can't ask me how to fix this. You have to ask the white man why he ever needed a nigga in the first place.
I didn't create it.
So we didn't create the situation. So coming to black people to ask how to fix racism is redundant and it's counterproductive because we didn't create it as a ethnicity. Not as a race, But you have to go back and look at the history of things, and people don't want to do that because then they have to face ugly truths about what happened. But if you don't know what happened, you can't fix it.
Right.
It's utterly impossible. If we can't go back to the apex of the situation for us to understand, this is where the change happened, and from this change, all of these different things happen. Now that we understand it, we know what we need to do going forward.
I live by the 5% principle: build and destroy. Very simple. Things are built to be destroyed. You have to destroy this and rebuild it in order for it to be any better for anybody that already exists. There's no way that you're going to fix what already exists. It has to be destroyed. The only way.
How do you destroy it?
You tear it down. You tear it down by name and by building. Name and break. And you no longer call it an institution. And you build something else in its stead. The same way they did with the World Trade Center. You build and destroy. Because if you don't destroy these institutions, they always, okay, with 9/11, they tell you, never forget. That's every year since 2001. You see on your TV screen, your news, your phone, never forget. They tell you forget about the shit they did to you, though. Put that's the past. Let that go. Ain't that shit the past too? You ain't letting that shit go. So why I gotta let shit go? I'm not letting go anything that affects me personally. See, what you did to my grandparents and great grandparents, according to what you wrote in some history books, because I'm an avid reader. There's Melville Herskovich wrote a book called The Myth of the Negro Past. That shit's, name a nigga you know worked on the plantation out here. We from where plantations at. Name a nigga you know worked at the plantation that got beat by a nigga. Name one. Name one. I can't. And I know niggas that lived around and worked on these plantations. I can't name one. Mine too. Never heard one story about him getting his ass whooped with no fucking whip or nothing, my G. No. Never told me nobody treated him bad or fucked over him. Never heard those stories. That shit's a myth to a certain extent. Because in this universe, everything has to work in complementary paths with each other. There are those of us that are skilled enough to go out and they pay for our labor. And there's some of us that are dumb enough to not get a skill or a trade, and they use them as servitude. So the story of a few is not the story of all. I come from a generation I had two women in my family. My grandmother and her mother, my great-grandmother. These two women singularly owned property in this racist ass town. Now tell me how two black women own property in a town that's supposed to be a racist city. See, that, to me, a lot of it is propaganda. A lot of it is just things that are told to us. Yes, we have experiences that we can't explain. No, things happen. Right. There are people that are generally going to just not like you in this universe. Right. You're not for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like Benz ain't for everybody. That's why you make Ford. You know what I'm talking about? So, everything ain't for everybody. But you have to allow people to make the choice that's best for them. Sometimes me and you thought we just not gonna vibe. I don't care what your color is. See, you're a hue man. See, I see that word differently than everybody else. HUEMAN. Shade of you, bro. It's a shade. Your lack or abundance of a thing doesn't make you less or more shit. Because you lack melanin don't make you supreme, and because I have more don't make me a slave. It's a mentality. It's a thought process. It's about what you, how you feel about shit.
I'm looking for another.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, it has nothing to do with anything besides it's a taught and learned thing, brother. That came from your house. You got that from your granddaddy, from your grandmama, from your mama, your daddy, your uncle. Somebody fed you some bull about what you think somebody is, and they never even been around. Never had an interaction with them. Never came into contact with them. And you making judgments. It's okay to be prejudiced against things. Mm-hmm. Because you're doing that in ignorance.
Right.
A lot of the time.
But
when you learn, you do better.
But I think too, and correct me if I'm wrong, said there's a difference between prejudice,
discrimination,
and discrimination.
It is.
Absolutely. They're two different words. If you look them up, they're absolutely two different things.
Prejudice.
To prejudge something.
It's hilarious because we're doing leak prep right now. It's state testing time in the school. And last week we just did a excerpt on a story called Esperanza Rising. A young Mexican girl and her family, they leave Mexico, come to the United States, trying to escape from Uncle. And the writing prompt is, in this story, you have seen both themes of prejudice and discrimination. Treating someone worse than, looking down on somebody because you feel like you're better than. But prejudice is having an opinion about something not rooted in reason or factual experience. So the analogy I used was, I said, tell me a food you don't like. And I asked one of my students, she's like, I don't like green beans. I said, why? So because I don't like the way they taste in my mouth, they cherry. Okay, cool. Not a problem. Now tell me something you haven't tasted that you don't like. Oh, peas. Why not? She said broccoli. I said, why not? I don't know. It just looked like, I said, but have you tasted it? She said, no. I said, okay, so you have a prejudice against broccoli, but you discriminate against green beans. You've experienced it. I said, let me be real with you. I have a prejudice against eggplant. All I know, it can taste like steak, but I don't know. I ain't never put it in my mouth. Right. So, I had to make it relatable to them to understand the concept. So your prejudice is what you've never experienced. Even if somebody else has experienced and told you about it, you never experienced it. Because there are some of us who have had issues with some of our same high school mates that I never had. I can understand and relate your experience with a particular person, but that was my experience with that person.
That part I can be guilty of.
Right. So it's a prejudice.
But it don't have anything to do with skin color. It could be one of, like, say, for instance.
No. And that's the thing.
I could be more helpful and give more, insight and to try to help more to someone that I had experiences with.
Right, absolutely.
With. Yeah. And it could be white, black, whatever, opposed to
somebody that's brand new off
the street. Might be the same race as me, but I don't know you like that.
And that's
fine. You see what I'm saying?
And that's cool.
Now, that part, but as so far as, I don't.
It's nuanced, brother. It's been so long and has morphed and changed so much. There's so much nuance to it, but if you break it down and get to the core of it, folks don't want to deal with the root issue of it.
Let me tell you something. I'm not a real church goer. I'm a minister, but I don't believe in church. But I heard Dr. Dollar say something. Dr. Creflo A. Dollar made a statement right there, word like Christian said with Dr. Leroy Thompson. He made a statement. He said, you should owe no man nothing but to love him. And I took that and I walk around every day in this life that way. I owe no man nothing but to love him. And if you don't happen to love me, regardless, I'm still going about my day the same. I don't care how you feel. I'm not going to allow you to affect my energy.
Because what you think about me ain't none of my business. What you think about me ain't none of my business.
It doesn't affect my bottom line. It doesn't bring me any income. It doesn't bring me anything besides, another opinion. The opinions are like assholes. Everybody got one. Most of them stink. I'm good on that. I'm good on it. So, owe no man nothing but to love him. I take information from everywhere, bro. Like, I'm the guy that lives by... I read a book by Dr. Neely Fuller. It's a really good book. Y'all will probably never read it. It's about, racism, counter-racism theory. And when I say I'm a minister, I study everything. Because you don't know when or how you're going to have to meet a person where they are. I'm not a heavy Christian, but I study Christianity. I'm not a Muslim, but I study Islam. I'm not a Jew, but I study Judaism. I study Buddhism. I study Sikhism. I study all of these isms and things so that I can have a better understanding on what I can see in my little bitty brain, the infinite intelligence that we call God to be. The only way I can operate in that way is to walk around here knowing myself and being happy with me and let you do you. Whatever that may be. Whatever that may be. As long as what you doing don't infringe on me.
Right.
As long as it's not bringing me hurt, harm, or danger, I'm good with you.
And you're not making me accept. And that's why I feel that some of these...
And that's another reason why I don't do church.
Some of these...
Because there's a force of a particular thing they're trying to bring you to. I'm not with that. I'm not with it. To me, church is built on guilt. And fear is the church's steeple. They make you feel guilty and they make you scared of going to hell. I'm not with that. You're here already. You've already been chosen to be here. You have a choice to make once you're here what you want to do at that time. There's no heaven or hell that you're going to go to, but there's a heaven or hell that you're going to go through. You can experience the good or you can experience the bad, based off of your own information, your own experience here. Based off of what you choose. Not what someone gives you, but what you choose. My dad was a Baptist minister. He gave me some things that I kept, and a lot of things I threw away. I kept the good and I got rid of the bad. It made me who I am. It was necessary and mandatory for me to have that from him. That particular thing from him was necessary. I have my aunts, uncles, they were in Catholic church. It was necessary I got those things from him. Those little bitty things. They all help you. It's like you're building a ladder. And you're taking steps. And you just, you're steadily climbing. You're elevating yourself. You're climbing up. So when you take time to worry about things that are outside of the material realm, when you take materialistic things out of, if that's just your focus, and you start living your life with some spiritual principle, you won't have time for hating them. You won't have time to be mean or mad with anybody. You won't. Because you're more concerned with making sure that you're in tune with this universe. This world lives by a vibration. And when you're in the right vibration, big things happen. And when you're out of tune, you squander all your opportunity. Life is hard. With reason and purpose, though. Because people think that their blessings come to them. They don't come to you. They come through you. It's the only way you get anything. So for us to change this racism or anything that we want to change, it has to be through you being a better version of yourself. Not the same motherfucker you went to bed last night or who you woke up the next day. What do you spend your time doing? What are you investing in you? I'm not talking about work. I'm talking about really spending time and knowing yourself. Because people's running around trying to know a nigga they ain't gonna never meet in Jesus. But they don't know the nigga they look at in the mirror every day. And that motherfucker is more important than anything else. You live and die with that person. You do. You gotta be good with you. The better you are with you, the better I can be with my neighbor, my child, my spouse, my brother, my sister, my mother. The better, no matter what walk of life, the better you are with you, the better you can be with others. If you ain't gonna be good to you, you're gonna treat other people. Hurt people. That's a fact.
And sometimes you don't even know you don't. Sometimes you don't know you're dead.
And you don't know because you don't spend the time
wanting to know. But if
a lot of people
ask the questions, you don't know the answer.
Well, a lot of people don't want to face things.
True.
There's a lack of facing reality.
I spoke on that on one of my inspirational videos. Man, just admitting to who you really are.
And even if you have to admit you don't know, that's your first step.
But it's okay with not knowing.
And I told you last night, I'm gonna keep it real. My biological father, me and my mother got divorced when I was 4 or 5 years old. My stepfather came along. Mom got married since 83. Still married to this day. My father comes from a family of 21. He got 19 brothers and sisters. My stepfather got 19 brothers and sisters. All he's ever done was know how to work to provide because he knew his family couldn't support him. So I never once in my next Monday, in my 43 years of being on this earth, have ever had to wonder where Jerry Eli was. He was always at home. He wasn't at home, he was working.
Yeah, that worked.
When he came home from work, he came home. woke up in the morning, went to work. Got off of work, came home. I never had to be concerned about where my dad was. That was he began, and my father. That's the man who raised me. I never had to wonder about that. Was he emotionally available? Nah, not all the time. Could I talk to him? Surface stuff when I was younger. As we've gotten older, we've been able to get more and have real those heart-to-heart conversations. But that development growing up, nah, that wasn't his role. Did he have those tools to do that? He probably didn't, based on where he came from and how he had to do it. So you deal with people who become sedated, who are just getting the best they can, doing it the best they know.
They have their own trauma.
Right, they have their own trauma. And so with that, that's what gets passed on to you. So sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you get into the presence of somebody that challenges you to make you go, dang, I ain't never really thought about it. And so while he showed me how to work hard, he never made it mandatory that I come out there to watch him and be next to him. He allowed me to do the things that I was interested in. They weren't necessarily the things he was interested in, but there were some things that I missed. And what I recognized about that was that although I have morals that have been instilled to me by my parents and my aunts and uncles and my grandparents, the things that they said, and I saw different things, to keep it all the way real, I don't have a code that I live by. I'm a grown man with a son, a wife, baby girl on the way, she'll be here in May. And I don't have a code that I operate through and live out of.
When you say code,
like just things that are just, I have morals. There's ways that I'm going to handle certain, handle people, try to get, do unto others, you have to do unto you, the golden rules, all of those things, treat people with respect, da 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 da. But as far as a code that you can actionize and mobilize to give you the same type of results day in and day out, like the Marines, they got a code. The Navy SEALs, they got a code. No matter where you come from, your ethnicity, your walk of life, if you become a Marine, you operate by this code. If you are a Navy SEAL, you operate by this code.
Well, those codes that they live by, they were given to them by an outside person. They don't own those codes.
Gotcha.
And then they become codes for a group of people. Mm-hmm. The way we're made, right. Your fingerprints don't match up no other motherfucker in this world. Your code comes from within. It can only come from within. And when I say from within, that within is from whatever you're attached to that's bigger than this universe. Right. It's going to tell you or show you how you need to be interacting with things.
If for what Carl was saying, that means you do have a code. But it's your own.
And it's not written down.
You know what I'm saying?
Nothing that I realize written down in the book.
If I'm listening, if I'm saying it right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you're just not able to verbalize it. Right. That's the and to you, being an analytical person, let me explain something to you, brother. Okay. I don't use the term African American because I'm from America. Right. And to be African American, someone in our ancestry in the last 50 years had to come from that continent to here in law. That ain't the case for me. I'm an indigenous American, okay? So, but when you study religion and culture, the African concepts of things bring unity and harmony into the universe, okay? Nothing has to be written down because when you write things down to a certain extent, you compartmentalize them and you make them more European.
You can write it down, you can alter it, you can change it.
We live more by ritual and symbol. Right. So you go through certain events and things consistently enough to where they become a natural part of your life. Yeah. To where you're not even thinking about them anymore. To the point that you can teach these things to your children and they don't even know they're doing them. It's almost like a programming. Yeah. And I'm not using that in a negative sense. You want yourself to get into such a routine of doing what's necessary that you're able to execute all the time. And understand that spirit and spirit, emotion, and rationality play a dual part, a complementary part in this universe. Like they go together. Yeah. Like it takes spirit to animate matter in order for matter to exist and even have purpose. Otherwise, an object don't mean nothing.
Not alive.
Until you utilize it for something. Until you sit back on it.
This might not even be a pillar, because depending on where you are, this could be a chair. This could be a table, depending on.
It's crazy. I'm sitting up here just and all listening, y'all. But by the way, you listeners out there, I forgot to tell y'all, my cousin Carlos is AKA chosen intellectual. Just to let y'all know that. Just to let y'all know that. I forgot to introduce him as that early on.
But when you living by a code though, man, like your code is not going to be something that you wear on your chest, or like no badges or anything like that. It's going to be shown through your actions. I got you. Like those that are close to you know, like, oh, he's not going to go for this. Like I can't talk to him like that.
Like me and you know certain things about us.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I don't care what you do, as long as me and him are rocking, don't even try, because we ain't even having that.
Not having it.
And we all have those things. So just in gaining new information and listening to it being described a certain way made me come to that realization, but also recognizing that, you know what, I have it, I just got to be able to verbalize it.
And you don't. No, you don't.
I can verbalize it for myself, not necessarily for anybody else.
So in verbalizing it to yourself, that's more or less your intuition telling you what you need to do in the moment.
Right.
It doesn't need to be verbalized to you. You are living it. You are in the moment. To verbalize it means you're trying to explain it to the next motherfuckers who don't really need no explanation because this ain't their experience.
Right. I got you.
And I mean that.
I got you.
Like now when you have a spouse and you have other people involved, like, yes, you need to be able to, explain yourself and say what's going on, but like, nah, you gotta explain yourself to me and Mike. Like why you chose to go that way instead of the other way, like, that's my call, man. Like, I wanted to go that way. There was something, I have to tell you, I'm looking at some property that way. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to pass by and see if it was available still. Nah, because I'm not letting you know what's going on with them. I'm trying to do everything my way. Like, so, I have to just get to keep certain things. And,
certain things you keep close to the
but
because you don't let everybody know every move you make.
No, but there has to but you also have to live with a certain amount of transparency in the world. You have to be free enough, Mike, to be honest.
Yeah.
How else do you think that you get? How else do you think conviction comes about with people? That's all situations in the church. How do you think conviction comes about? It's about honesty. It's about you being able to see that person like you see yourself. It's like you being able to stand up there and be like, hey, I ran women. Ask my wife. I used to cheat on that woman that's sitting right there in that pulpit. She's sitting right there. I used to cheat on her. I didn't have respect for her nor myself.
But that's the crazy part about it.
There's a lack of honesty.
Everybody not feel like that.
No, because they can't live their truth.
Because at the end of the day, people say this and say that and say who they want to be and say who they are.
When it comes time,
to really push out that truth and recognize, because to be honest with you, you can really be a blessing to somebody. Being honest about your situation.
And people need that, brother.
Yeah.
If you don't be honest, man, you have nothing.
Look at the Kirk Franklin situation.
The greatest thing I've seen all the time.
Listen, and I'm glad that you spoke on that.
I'm so happy you brought that up.
I was about to shut down because usually I cut it off.
Okay.
But we're going to speak on this right quick. Okay. Bro, whoever's out there and listening to this podcast, first of all, we all are human.
Absolutely.
I don't care who you are and who
you
man,
do.
we all have things in the closet, that things people don't know, and man,
you don't fully understand.
You don't fully understand the situation, man. Stop judging people, man.
We make Kirk Franklin the musician. We do not know Kirk Franklin the father.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And even if that, you know what I'm saying, but
no, that's it. We don't know Kirk Franklin's father, so we do not know what he's gone through with his son. Absolutely. I remember him talking about his son Carrington. years ago.
Right.
So it didn't dawn on me like, wow, this cat is 33 years old. Like, he a grown man all the way out.
Right.
So that shows you the longevity he has had in the business and the gatekeeper of gospel music. And so, while, yes, he needs Jesus just like the rest of us, those that are ascribing to Christianity. And so, you don't know what, and I don't, we don't know what character knows about the relationship between his mother and his father. We don't know what went on. We don't know the ins and outs of all of that. We don't know what Kirk tried to do to include him. He either chose not to because he was older, or a mother had told him some things and kind of poisoned his decision making. And so you take an excerpt of your father's frustrated conversation with you, and to put that out for the world to see that, yeah, he ain't this. And then for the Christian church to come at him as if he did them something. Hold on.
I'm going to need all these hypocrites to
Right.
shut up right quick.
Right, because you just finished backhanding your wife because the grist was cold.
I'm going to need
saying?
this grown ass son.
I want to
get
ask y'all
this
something.
together.
Right, because he didn't play the entire thing.
Now I want to ask y'all something. And I still want to stay on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
Experiences racism. Mm-hmm. That same thing, but just like we speaking on, okay, right? He's human. Mm-hmm. We can't be judgmental. Mm-hmm. How do you handle a person that you know for a fact they're racist? Mm-hmm. But are you supposed to be judgmental toward them, or trying to get in to figure out where did this come from, man? How could I?
Here's my thing is,
how could I create this?
Number one, it's going to depend on the level of experience and exposure that I have to have with this person.
Right.
Because if I don't have to be around them, because based on how what they ascribe to, why?
I don't care what
I don't need to. Because at the end of the day, as long as you feel how you feel, and I can always look at you with the side eye to make sure you ain't trying to do nothing crazy.
Right.
But if you do, it's my responsibility to check you in that moment, depending on what it is. Depending on what it is. But then if I don't have to be around you, I don't have to. Now, and that's just me. Like, if I don't got to deal with you, I don't. I thought the quote I was looking for from Albert Einstein, I couldn't find. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I would think that if there's an opportunity to do that education, then I would.
You only educate people that you care about, that you love.
You know what I'm saying?
You're not going to waste your time talking to the wall.
Right. And if there's those who are just so fully ingrained in it,
but what I'm saying is, how do you know they're like that unless you have some kind of?
Well, you may have that opportunity to be like, hey man, where that's coming from?
I saw you do such and such.
Or, hey, why are you talking to me like that?
No, whenever they open up their mouth and answer, and you can kind of, okay, I'm not even going to wait.
It's like, you know what? I appreciate that answer, man. Appreciate you. I appreciate you being honest enough to tell me.
Because like you say, sometimes the spirit or whatever that's in you can lead you to kind of.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe I need to.
There's some. See, people are afraid of confrontation, and some confrontation is good. Sometimes, and I'm not talking about fighting against altercations, but I'm talking about like dialogue between opposing parties. Right. It's necessary because you each can learn something from one another.
You can always agree to disagree.
And that can be the end.
I'm not agreeing to disagree.
You feel how you feel. I still feel how I feel.
I stand on what I stand on my square.
Right.
And it only fit one motherfucker anyway, so I don't need your agreement. And I'm gonna tell you this too. Me plus the infinite plus God in agreement. I don't need no other motherfucker in the world. That's two right there. Me and God. Anything else is extra. The Bible tells you with 2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean,
me plus God is enough. That's an army, baby. It's over with. Fear is the opposite of faith, brother. If you operate in fear,
faith can't do it.
You ain't got no faith. Yeah. So I don't know nothing about. I don't know anything about opposing energy when it comes to the infinite, brother. All I know is that it always does what it's supposed to do. And that's the way I operate in my life. I do what's required of me from the people that I've giving myself to. If I promise or giving you my word that I'm going to do a thing, Tuesday 2 o'clock, every Tuesday 2 o'clock, nigga.
That's what it is, huh?
And if something happens, if I can't do it, I'll told you
the only way I
told
know
you on Monday or early Tuesday morning.
I committed to it. I ain't gonna come between. The only thing I don't do is death happens.
Gotcha. Okay.
Period. Otherwise, I'll arrange everything else around what I already got going on.
Gotcha.
Ain't no excuses.
Okay.
I don't deal with excuses. Excuses are crutches of the uncommitted. You have to stay committed to your cause. Whatever you said. Word is bond.
Right.
That shit they say in New York, word is bond, kid. Word is bond. Your word bonds you to what you said you're going to do. It holds you accountable. If you can't be held accountable, get your ass around me. I can't do that. I deal with people that are accountable and responsible for what they say. Not for what I say, what they say.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up.
Yes, sir.
Y'all just heard Chosen Intellectual.
It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you having us, Mike.
Man, I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all listeners out there, I hope y'all got a lot out of it. Y'all hit the subscribe button, hit the like, leave your comments.
Yeah, light it up, man.
Till next time, I'm Mike up. Peace out.